All right, so we are joined from Atlanta by friend of the class, joining us again, Diamond Jenrette, also known as Black Girl in Tech. And we are recording this for all of our computer science engineering students in Madison County schools. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson, and we're recording this for our friends at Shirley Simmons Middle School, Old Town Middle School, Germantown Middle School, Madison Middle School, as well as Germantown High School and Ridgeland High School. So we thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule. And we are looking at a lot of computer science things, looking at a lot of CAD and coding and things like that. But before we talk about all that, we'd love to hear your background on and a little bit about Diamant Dezigns. I hope I said that correctly. And some of the things you do there in the big city and how you got into all this and some of the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, sure. So I started in IT, I would say in college as in an internship. I was I believe I was a senior at Virginia State University, and I won an internship where I was chosen. I can't remember how many students applied, but I was the chosen intern, and I worked. It was with a small consulting company, and they specifically wanted me to do kind of like shadowing and just kind of helping build with websites and stuff like that, because they already know I had background in that. And eventually it developed into an actual role. About, I say 2 years after graduating, I was in a really bad place after college. I was working 3 jobs and could not pay rent. And I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And even after graduating with a tech degree, I still had no idea what I wanted to do and how I was going to apply that to my life. And I got a call from my manager from the internship who said that they had an opening for a systems administrator. And I had no idea what that was. Said that I would be managing servers. And at the time, I had no idea what the difference was between a server and a PC. Yeah. But I had maybe 4 weeks to drive from Wisconsin, where I was living at the time with my parents. I had to drive from Wisconsin to Virginia and cram in years of knowledge within 4 weeks so that this company could think that I knew what I was talking about. So that's pretty much how I started in IT. It was very, very tough. And I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about not just about the technology, but just the industry and the people that you work with and the environments that you work with. And so after I say a couple of years, I left that role, and I got a more extensive role, pretty much doing the same thing, but I got to do most of the hands-on. So I was actually building systems from scratch. So I worked there, and eventually I moved to Atlanta. My family is in Florida and Georgia. So I wanted to be kind of central to them. So that's pretty much how I ended up here in Atlanta. It wasn't as expensive as it is now, but it was definitely a dream of mine. And once I got here, I actually got laid off of my role. They lost the contract, and there was all types of like stuff. So they had to let tons of people go. And so I had to kind of go back to what I should have started at, which was like help desk in IT. So I had to do that for a few months. And then I ended up getting the role that I'm in now, which is a senior systems engineer. Wow. So there was some back and forth, but I'm really grateful because I get to see all sides of it now and, see how it really impacts in all types of the company.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm glad you said that, because the system engineering jobs, system administrators, those jobs are not going away. And they're probably growing even faster, because I don't care if it's a hotel, if it's a government agency, if it's a restaurant, or it's a police station. They got to have systems people. You don't have to be an expert in that field, but these servers that these companies are paying for cannot go down. You're talking about millions of dollars in transactions. You're talking about people's hotel reservations. You're talking about payroll, HR stuff. So it is a very, very important skill that is ever changing.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd have to explain what I do to people, because they're really not sure, how exactly I say I work with servers, but, people don't understand that. So the best way I describe it is, the smallest thing you can think of has to be built by something which is connected to some sort of application they use. Just think of like email. Email, depending on what platform it is, either way, it's built on a server. And although we have all these developers and applications people and all that, they can't do anything without a server. And they can't do anything without the storage to store the files and all that. So that's what I do. That's what I manage. And that's essential for anything. Every single thing you can think of came from some sort of system. So that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, and even more so now, if you look at the healthcare industry, the servers in hospitals, the servers in banks. A good friend of mine is a server guy with the Mississippi Department of Revenue. And one time I just jokingly asked him, I said, "What happens if the server goes down?" And his response, he was dead serious. He said, "It can't go down." So he said it's a $7 billion budget. So, things like that, these jobs are always changing and it's always trending. Now, you do have a degree in computer science.
Well, yeah, computer information systems. Yeah.
Oh yeah, computer information systems. But these companies are looking not a little bit for the degree, but they're looking more for the people with the skills and the certifications. So talk a little bit about how, even though you have a degree, how much your skill set has changed with the growing, changing in technology.
Yeah, so when I started, as you know, like I said, I didn't really have much experience, so I didn't know how important all of it was. But every year, you hear more of a new technology that's coming out, and more companies will adapt that technology. So it becomes more and more important for you to even if you don't touch it, to just know what it does and how it works and what it looks like and all of that, because you're going to be sitting in a room with tons of people in the IT department that are on all faces of IT that are going to be talking about this. And if you can't speak to it and how you interact with it, it does not look good. So over the years, I've had to get tons of certifications, or even some that aren't really like official certifications. I've had to like take classes for things. Like I've had to learn the basics of like PowerShell or Linux, or I've had to learn, like I just got a VMware certification. I had to go back to school for that so I can get that. But they're very, very important. And I do still think a degree is important just to get your foot in the door, because some people won't even look at you without a degree. But I feel like your certifications and your experience is way more valuable when you're dealing with tech.
Yeah, and the tech field is one of those fields where you could work in the field full time while you're going to school once you have a certification.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of companies are willing to provide things like that, and even if you're just going to school part time. Now, another thing, and I've asked every guest this, and I asked you this last time because I always love hearing it, is any type of engineer, whether it's a systems engineer, a computer engineer, electrical engineer, industrial engineer, it is all built on solving problems. So, a lot of this generation, if they don't get it right the first time, oh, it's too hard, I quit. How often do you really get it right the first time?
Probably never. I would say a lot of the times, I think I mentioned before how most of my job is troubleshooting, and it is trying to figure out how to solve the problem and who to go to and all of that. And I actually think when you go to school, you learn those skills of like how to solve the problem. You don't actually know. You're not hired because you're an expert and you know the answer to everything. You're hired because you know how to get
there. There you go.
That was a big scary thing for me, because when I first started, I was like, I don't know anything. But if you know how to Google, and you know how to research, and you know how to you know the terminology and all that stuff, you can pretty much get the answer to anything. And people are always willing to help you.
Yeah, and the other thing you mentioned too is right now all of them are seeing you on a MacBook. And the iOS is fine and good and all for what it does. But these kids seem to be reluctant to learn these other systems. They seem reluctant to learn the Windows and all this stuff. So how important is it to be well versed in as many programs and operating systems as possible, even if you're not going into the tech field? Because like you said yourself, the technology is always changing. Even if you're not a technology expert, you're going to need to know this stuff.
Yeah. So it's so funny because there's like this big battle, you know, between Mac and Android users, and I've always been an Android user for forever. Just because I love the flexibility, I love full control of my devices, and in IT, there are some users that use Mac, but it's not very prominent because most of the applications that you use and most of the applications that are developed are not using Apple products, are not using Mac. And it can kind of be a hindrance if you're using that. And sometimes there are people who will have to have a another OS instance on their machine of Windows just because of that. So yeah, I think it's very, very, very important to be open, because not even Windows, there's Linux out there that even myself, I need to, you know, learn so that I can understand how it works. There's applications that will not work on a Windows or Mac. So yeah, it's very.
It's similar to on your phone. There's apps that won't work on certain platforms. It's kind of the same principle. So knowing as many operating systems and software as possible can only be beneficial, especially in this ever-changing world that all of us are living in faster than we realize. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Diamant Dezigns, because yeah, you're a server person, but you're doing some unbelievable artistic and business stuff as well. So we'd love to hear about your business.
Yeah, so and I say around middle school or either beginning of high school, I started learning about web design. I am a very creative person, so as much as I love tech, I love just making things look nice and pretty. So I used to do or build websites just for anything. I wasn't getting paid for it back then. And then in college, during my last couple of years of college, I got really serious about it and started freelance designing. And that's how Diamant Design evolved. And today, I would say actually this year, I hired my first employee for Diamant Dezigns, another designer. And we build websites, we design branding, logo,
Wow.
Social media management, photography, anything, kind of like a one-stop shop for the branding side of a business. So that's been really fun. I love it. It's always been kind of like my double life, coming home and doing that. But I love it. I love working directly with the clients and seeing how passionate they are about their businesses. And I kind of feel like like an extra employee in all of these different types of businesses, and, you know, giving advice and stuff like that. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, and also there's also some coding involved in that, and part of this class is a little bit of coding. So what's some of the coding languages that you've learned when it comes to building these websites?
I say the most common is just learning HTML and CSS. There are some more advanced ones, but with what I do specifically, I just kind of modify code. So I really just need to know CSS and HTML. And a lot of that too, again, if you don't know it, you can research it. And there's all types of tools and builders and things out there that'll help. But yeah, definitely I have to deal with code a lot.
Yeah, and also we actually have a Academy of Multimedia here on campus at Velma Jackson. I'd love to get you in contact with them, showing you some of the stuff they do, because they are designing things of the same magnitude, and it's one of the only ones in the state that's actually on campus. So I love, you know, doing a lot of the same stuff, because yeah, there's tech involved in it, but there's also the artistic side where you have to bring those together, and businesses will pay good money for people that can do a good job of that.
Yeah.
And some of your designs, and we had a chance to look at them on your website. Those are some really interesting logo designs, because if somebody wants to be a business owner, you may not be an expert in designing a logo. You may have a great product and a great sales pitch, but if you can't sell it, you're going to have find somebody that can help you get your name out there and get the publicity. And well, you guys have done some amazing designs with that. But I do have some questions from the students. And these are really good. So good luck with this. This is Justin Clerk. He's a senior. And he asked, what is the most difficult problem you encounter on your job?
The most difficult problem. I would say the most difficult problem is politics. There's a lot of office politics. There's a lot of politics within the company. So, and there's this big thing in IT where if you don't explain it well, someone who's non-technical can't justify giving you what you need because they just don't understand it. Wow. So a lot of times IT is gypped money-wise, resource-wise, or we're the last to know anything. So sometimes we're told at the last minute that a whole team is coming to I don't know, put in a new system, and we didn't know until like the day of because they didn't think to tell us. Just that's some of the things that I've realized, and then not just in my company now that I've worked for, but just in years and years of being in other IT environments. It's pretty much the same all the time.
Yeah. Now this is Aaliyah Chester, and she's a junior. And she asked, when you got into this field, what was your main goal?
When I got into the field, I guess I didn't really have a main goal. I always thought it was cool to one day become a CIO. And until I realized they don't really get to touch much IT stuff. They do a lot of talking and they're in a lot of meetings and things like that. But I would say my goal now is to try to stay hands-on and still be a leader in my team environment.
Yeah, because it really is a great mixture of, you know, all your systems people. It's a great mixture of hardware and software. So for people that enjoy both, it's a great field to get into. Now this is Jasmine Williamson, and she is a sophomore, and she asked, what part of your job do you struggle with the most?
I would say the part that I struggle with the most, I guess other than the politics part, is sometimes there's bugs or different things that you don't know exist, and you could be working hours on something and realize that it was a bug from the actual application, something that they didn't catch or they haven't fixed it yet, and you spent 2 or 3 days on it. But I mean, that I would say that's the most difficult part. I mean, most of my job is pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Now this is Destiny Smith, and she's a sophomore. And you talk a lot. You talk a lot about this on social media. But she asked, "Is it hard getting young girls to get into this field?"
Yes, yes. So that's one of the things that I've been really trying to get a feel of how to reach out and how to get them involved. Because it's not really something that when you ask a little girl, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? They don't say, I want to be in IT. So it's almost like they don't really see it as attainable or something that they can even do. And so like I have a goddaughter, she didn't even realize, even though her godmom works in IT, she didn't even think that it was a possibility. So I have an idea that one day I want to be able to help, I guess, make that a possibility. Just let people know what it takes to get into it, so that if they want to get into it, they have more knowledge and they can see more people that are in there that looks like them, and it'll be more attainable.
Yeah, and it's just like any other field. The more diverse it is, not only racially but gender wise, it's so important for the success of that field to reflect the actual population of the country, because it's not all white men in the country, which is what people thought of when it comes to IT. But that trend is changing, and it's something that will continue to need to change. And I think you do a great job of really getting that out there. This is Jakayla Page, and she is a sophomore. And she asked, what are some of the biggest malfunctions you deal with computers?
Some of the biggest malfunctions. I wouldn't say there's. I think the biggest that I've dealt with is maybe knowing the limitations between the different systems for what you have to do.
Wow.
So I'll say, for example, we have an old system that I have to virtualize, and there's all types of limitations just getting it from this physical server into this virtual environment because of the size of the machine and the application that's used to virtualize it. It's just all types of like hoops and hurdles that you have to get over just to get this system to where you want it to be. And people do it all the time. So it really shouldn't be that hard, but that's one of the biggest things. Is something that should be simple can probably take weeks and months because there's all these different things that you have to get through.
Oh yeah, and I never thought about that, because I used to be in the cell phone industry, and I saw that all the time. People expect something to do something, but there's no way possible with the way it's built it will ever be able to do that. So that's
Yeah.
pretty important to know that kind of stuff. I just got two more from the students, but this is Amari Williams. He's a sophomore, and he asked, "Do you ever face any type of discrimination in the field because you're a Black woman?"
Yes. I definitely say I have in the past, especially I've seen it during like interviews. I've seen it where they loved me on paper, and then as soon as I'd have an interview, they would say I wasn't a culture fit, or I don't know. So some types of they always have these like ways that they would frame it, but that's what it was. And I've even seen it where I wasn't expected to be the lead. So if we're in a meeting and I'm leading the meeting, I would be looked at as the assistant or like a junior role just because of probably my age, or just because I'm not who they would expect. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot more of that. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we had a guest from California she was a female, owned a construction company, and she said she had lost count of the amount of times somebody asked, "Who's your husband?"
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's hopefully something that'll be a thing of the past. But yeah, that's just more motivation for these young girls to try to follow in your footsteps. Now, this last one, this is from Layla Young. She's a senior. She's our Miss Velma Jackson, and she has her heart set on going to Spelman University in the fall. So she wants to know what it's like to live in Atlanta because she wants to be there next.
Well, I would say I've been here about 6 years, and it's definitely changed since I've been here. But I love it. I really do. From all the places I've lived, this is probably one of the best places I've lived. It's also you have to know where to move and where to go, because there could be some really great neighborhoods, and right next to it is a dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that you know what you want to do and that you have a solid plan. Atlanta's not a place to be if you have no plan. It's very expensive now.
Thank
And
you for repeating that. I say it all the time. Big city living has big city bills.
yeah, definitely.
Thank you for somebody else besides me saying
it. Yes.
But yeah, it's a great city. I'm a big Hawks fan, so I get out there when I can. But you are absolutely right about the way the city is laid out. It is a great place to be, but you better have a plan and you better have some sort of idea of what's going on. It's not a place to go blindly. I agree 100%. But we're almost out of time. But just two things before we go. One, tell us why all these young people, especially these young girls and these young Black girls, should consider getting into this field because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, just like anything, I think we bring just women of color. We bring a type of, we have different skill sets that we can bring to anything. And it's always good to have diverse voices and anything, because if we had, a bunch of white men making Black hair products, that wouldn't be good. You know what I mean? So you have to make room for everyone, and everyone needs to know that they're available, that there are available roles here, and that they can be happy here, and they can make a lot of money here, and they can do all of that. And it's not hard. I think that's a big thing, is people think it's really hard. Yeah, I definitely think it's great to open it up for diversity, and we bring a lot of detail oriented people, and that's all I can think of right now. But yeah.
Oh, and also it's funny you say that too. We have one Latino student here with us, and we'll have some more watching this later. Being bilingual in this field is extremely vital. So Spanish speakers, and we'll have some Asian speakers that'll watch this later as well. So having that extra language skill is extremely important in something as international as IT. But before we go, you're a great Instagram follow. So tell us where to find your website and to follow you on Instagram.
So I'm on Instagram at Black Girl in Tech. I also have a blog at blackgirlintech.com, and or you can check out my web design at diamantdesign.com.
And that's DiamantDezign.com. All right, well, Diamond Jenrette, thank you so much. I know you got a crazy schedule, but again, thank you for joining us again. You're always a pleasure to have in our class and doing some great things out there in Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon, my friend.
All right.
See ya.